Hey YouTube, this is Brian here. I'm going to be doing a top 10 countdown of my favorite musicians in no particular order. I'll provide a couple of songs or little facts along the way as to why I picked them. And let's get into it because there's a lot to talk about. Number one on the list is the guy who inspired me to play guitar in the first place, and I think the reason why I really followed through with it after my uh, dad got me my first guitar when I was 14. I think he's the reason that I really followed through with it because I was self taught, and so there was a lot of watching, YouTube lessons late at night and a lot of practicing out of those beginner guidebooks. But listening to the riff on like Purple Haze and the intricate guitar work on Red House, listening to the imagination on All Along the Watchtower. My favorite song by him has to be Voodoo Child's Slight Return, um, the slightly shorter version of the other song on the same album, which I think is normally referred to as Voodoo Chili, I think. Anyways, let's get to the next entry on the list. A band from the same era, fronted by the beautiful voice of Grace Slick and the awesome voice of Marty Balin. Uh, Jefferson Airplane. My favorite songs by them are Rejoice and Triad. Uh, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young also did Triad. I also like that song, It's No Secret, and of course their hits are great, but I wanted to take some time to mention some underrated B-sides too. I think Grace Slick probably has the best female rock voice of all time, and you know, not to leave out like Ann Wilson or Pat Benatar, but I think Grace Slick has probably the most awesome female rock voice, and just one of the best singers in all of rock. Period. Let's get on to number three. Uh, Southern rock band Leonard Skinner, who was oddly enough, I think, named after their high school principal. That's a cool way to get your band name, and a cool way to give a guy the finger, um, especially since they misspelled his name. Some of my favorite songs by this band are Call Me the Breeze, That Smell, Was I Right or Wrong, which has, I think, some of their best lyrics in all of their original songs, along with the next one that I'll mention, Simple Man. And I had never really heard Southern rock, and they inspired me to give country music a chance, and that opened up a whole new window in terms of lyrically based music. And I later found out about bands like The Devil Makes Three and Townes Van Zandt, and one of the first concerts I ever went to was a Jerry Jeff Walker concert, and I kind of owe that all to Leonard Skinner. They got me into that kind of stuff, and they have so much great music, and so many awesome guitar solos. Another song that I didn't mention, this is a live one if you want to check it out, is their live version of T for Texas, T for Tennessee, which is originally, um, God, my brain is blanking here, but it's originally a song from the 1920s. Um, my brain is blanking as to who it's by. I know it's a cover, and just correct me in the audience if you know. In the comments section, I should say. Number four on my list is Errol Garner, and you should check out his concert album, Concert by the Sea. And he used to sit on some phone books while he played because he was so short that he needed it to reach the keys and everything. I think that's pretty cool. But nevertheless, regardless of his height, he composed songs like Misty, and he played other ones like They Can't Take That Away From Me, and so many other great ones. Because his stuff was instrumental, I don't always know the titles of it, but I've listened to a crap load of this guy over the last couple of months. I got my first album from him back in June, and then I've gotten like five more since then. And it was really worth it, and I'd like to get more of him if there is more of him. I got the classic album series. I think they sell that on Amazon. Um, anyways, I don't know all the titles to his music, which is why I only mentioned two. Because since it's instrumental and there's no singing, it often kind of runs together, kind of like classical music does. You don't know the name of it, just that it sounds really good and is beautiful. Another mostly instrumental artist, this time with guitar, is gypsy jazz guitarist Django Reinhardt from the 30s and 40s. I think he passed in the early 50s. Um, he composed the song Minor Swing, and that's become a jazz standard. That's got to be one of the most covered songs of all time. I think it goes by several names. He also did beautiful songs like Jatendri, I think, if I'm pronouncing that right, and New Ages. And he teamed up with the beautiful violinist Stéphane Grappelli and the Quintet du Hot Club de France, I think. I don't want to leave out them because they often were an essential part of why his music was so beautiful. Their little bits in there, I mean, it's nice to see a front man kind of give the rest of the band their time. Um, you don't want to be selfish or anything. Anyways, yeah, Stefan Grappelli actually lived all the way into the 90s, which is crazy. Yeah, let's get on to number six. Neil Young. I think Neil Young is one of the best artists of any type, regardless of instrument or medium. And I know that's comparing apples to oranges a little bit, but I think Neil Young is one of the best overall artists in human history. And if I had to pick a favorite overall musician to like listen to 24 hours a day, it would probably be Neil Young. My favorite songs by him are Comes a Time, Don't Let It Bring You Down, Needle and the Damage Done, and Cortez the Killer. And don't forget Sugar Mountain, of course. And he did some great work with Nicolette Larson as well. And I think a lot of her hits weren't they written by Neil Young? Again, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, he's over the years worked with a lot of different types of musicians, and he's kept playing. He's played through illness over the years, and he's teamed up with different types of bands, like bands as different as Pearl Jam, and that's pretty different from his original style. And you don't want to forget Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. That was a fantastic supergroup, perhaps rivaled only by Cream. Uh, yeah, number seven on my list is Pink Floyd, and my favorite songs by them are Us and Them, Wish You Were Here, Comfortably Numb, and Hey You. Um, I remember Wish You Were Here was one of the first songs that I learned to play all the way through on guitar. And it's pretty fun. I still play that every time I sit down. And I think that David Gilmour has a really underrated voice. I mean, he's, I think, given attention as the guitarist that he is, but I think that he really deserves more attention for how awesome of a singer he is, you know? You don't really hear people mention Pink Floyd a whole lot for their vocals. A lot of times for their fantastic concert light shows or for their innovative studio effects or for Roger Waters' writing. Um, but you don't hear the vocals mentioned enough, I don't think. Um, yeah, I also love their guitar solos, which are something to strive for when you're playing guitar. That you want to learn those if you eventually get good enough. It's like a piano player trying to learn Art Tatum or Chopin or something. I mean, it's something to strive for, really. It's the high bar, you know. Number eight on my list is another great supergroup, along with the one I mentioned earlier, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. This band is Cream, and I think that they were probably better live than they were in the studio on their albums. A lot of my favorite songs from them are actually live performances, such as their performance of Spoonful, the 8 minute long version. I also love their live version of Sunshine of Your Love from the same concert. Some of my other favorite songs by them are White Room and Strange Brew, and I think that Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker really um, were at their best in that band. Clapton was kind of just zoned out, and he was on something or another there. I'll tell you that. He was pretty zoned out the whole time and pretty unplugged from the whole thing. Didn't really have much feeling or expression. But I think especially Ginger Baker, he was all over the place drumming just to beat the band, and yeah, I think those guys really carried that band. Number nine, a band that was really formed at the core by the center of Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell, I think is who I'm trying to name. Uh, Alice in Chains, um, one of the great grunge bands, and they had awesome songs like Man in the Box, Nutshell, Down in a Hole, so many other ones. They had a great unplugged concert too, arguably the best. Very, very few of the MTV unplugged concerts are there to compete with the one that Alice in Chains did. They had awesome guitar work too, but it was really that vocal uh, harmony between those two that formed how awesome the band was at center. Probably the best vocals of the 90s for a rock band. Arguably the only guy you could name, I think, would be Chris Cornell and Soundgarden. He had some awesome vocals too. Um, but it wasn't as intricate, I don't think. Was it? I don't really think so. I think Alice in Chains is the best singing band of the 90s, at least rock bands. Number 10, we're going to go back about 30 years before them to Creedence Clearwater Revival. One of the bands that is a band that I grew up with. I remember driving in my dad's car and him playing this on the radio and me hearing all of these awesome songs, and later going to get CDs from them and hearing their B-sides and their album tracks, and eventually I think I've heard everything from this band. They're one of my favorites too. If I was ranking this, they would probably be like in the top five for sure. Uh, some of my favorite songs by them are Susie Q, Green River, Bad Moon Rising, Effigy, Have You Ever Seen the Rain? Um, and I really like they have probably one of the best of albums I've ever seen. It doesn't feel like it's leaving anything off, especially if you buy the part two that goes with it. I think it's called the Chronicles, the Creedence Clearwater Revival Chronicles. Anyways, thank you for watching this. There was a lot of bands that deserve to be here that I didn't have time or space to put on. Thank you for watching, and subscribe, rate, comment, and I'll see you later.